With our journey in Paldea coming to an end with the release of the Indigo Disk, our adventures in the 9th generation of Pokemon are starting to wind down. We'll most likely get one more game announcement in the coming months to cap off this generation, but after that, it's highly likely that we'll move on to whatever new region and stories come next. One of the most exciting parts of this time in the pre-reveal hype cycle is speculating about where the next mainline Pokemon game will take place. Are we finally going to get the Australia region that people claim Game Freak has been hinting at with Komala? Will we return to American-based regions, or perhaps continue onwards with regions based on never-before-seen countries? It's a big topic of conversation in the Pokemon community right now, and today I thought I'd throw my hat into the ring and share the top 5 places that I personally would like to see the next Pokemon generation's region be based on. I won't be going as in-depth with these ideas as I did in my What If Blank Was a Pokemon Region videos, but I still wanted to count down some places around the world that I think could be a really cool basis for the next Pokemon generation to be set in. Number 5. Japan. Pokemon is no stranger to regions based on Japan. The first 4 generations were all set in fictional versions of the country, and just recently we had Kitakami from the Scarlet and Violet DLC, as well as the land of Hisui from Legends Arceus, which was a version of Sinnoh set in the past. With all that said, however, it's been quite some time since we've seen an entire game focused around a brand new modern region based on Japan, and personally, I'd love to see what Game Freak could come up with. There's still plenty of areas and prefectures in Japan that haven't been used as a basis for Pokemon regions yet, and if I personally had to pick one, I think it could be somewhere around here, in the northeastern part of the country. This is loosely where Kitakami was based on, and a new region could potentially expand on the Japanese countryside vibes found in the area with an entirely new Pokemon League. And maybe it could even have some ties with the Kanto region, such as continued plotlines or characters, as they would be relatively close to one another and share a rural setting. This is certainly not my craziest idea for a Gen 10 region, but there's just something I always find exciting about when Game Freak makes a region based on Japan. There's a specific vibe they have that I feel other Pokemon regions don't really get. It wouldn't be groundbreaking by any means, but I think exploring a more rural Japanese region, much like the original Pokemon games had, would be an interesting homage and a nice way to see a countryside environment we haven't had for a while, and potentially some fan-favorite returning characters. Number 4. Australia. Years ago, I made a video talking about what Australia could be like as a Pokemon region, and though I mispronounced many city and animal names, I still stand by the idea that the country could be a great inspiration for a Pokemon region. Maybe now more than ever. With Pokemon moving into more of an open world design, I think adapting Australia's massive outback desert into an open explorable area would provide great content. They could introduce a new ride Pokemon of some kind, potentially an emu that can run, fly, and swim, and you could use it to explore the vast desert, as well as areas based on some of Australia's more diverse locales, such as its jungles, mountains, and coasts. Another one of the great things that can be drawn upon for Pokemon Australia is the wide variety of animals that live there, many of which are already kind of considered to be real-life monsters. The Australian box jellyfish, kangaroos, gigantic poisonous spiders and snakes, wombats, emus, drop bears. Australia's got an incredibly diverse ecosystem of animals, and Pokemon could draw upon so many of them to make memorable designs for an Aussie region. Number 3. The Great Lakes region. One thing I value when it comes to thinking of places for future Pokemon regions is for them to have relatively unique geography and environments, something different from what we've seen in Pokemon so far. Love or hate Galar, it provided a quaint English countryside, which is a type of locale we hadn't had in Pokemon up to that point. A Great Lakes-based region, which would consist of Lake Superior, Huron, Michigan, Erie, Ontario, and the surrounding Canadian and American land, would be my pick for a region that has a unique environment. Imagine a Pokemon region where 90% of it is based around gigantic lakes and the heavily forested areas between them. A region where almost all towns and routes, including larger cities, are set upon the shores of the lakes themselves. Another aspect that would help a Great Lakes region stand out is its much colder climate, and I think that could be emphasized a lot in the environment itself. In a perfect world, we would get the seasons mechanic to come back from Gen 5 so we could experience the bitter frostbite of winter in Pokemon Chicago. But assuming it doesn't come back and we'd have to keep each area as a static season, I think the entire region could have a brisk autumn and winter feeling to it. That's the vibe I always associated with the Great Lakes when I used to live there, and a colder feeling region with Pokemon that have adapted to frostier temperatures would be incredibly cool to see and adventure through. Number 2. A Scandinavian or Nordic region. Speaking of colder climates, I think a Scandinavian or Nordic-based region would be extremely welcome purely because of its dramatically different geography. With its abundance of mountains, fjords, and snow, it would provide something that we haven't had an entire Pokemon game dedicated to. Previous Pokemon games have had small areas with snow or a specific mountainside area, but this region would bake all of those features into the core of its identity. Couple the icy mountains with the vast amounts of Norse legends and mythology that can be drawn upon for Pokemon and story inspiration, and I think there's some really cool stuff that could be done with the Pokemon region adventure set in the Nordic lands. A Viking evil team, Mjolnir hammer-based Pokemon, Valhalla-inspired area. Tons of really cool stuff, and I'd love to see Game Freak tackle it. And my number 1 pick is Italy. Italy is, I think, the gold standard for a potential future Pokemon region. Does it have incredibly diverse geography, ranging from islands to towns built on cliffs to volcanic mountains to snowy crags to grasslands? Check. Does it have a variety of interesting animals and legends that can be used for Pokemon inspiration? Check. Is its history and influence so vast and ancient that there's unlimited potential for interesting characters, stories, and location set pieces? Absolutely double check. I made a video about what Italy could be like as a Pokemon region a long time ago, and if it's any indicator, that video was over 2 hours long and was my most in-depth regional video to date. I've been showing some of the art and ideas I commissioned for that video during this section, and hopefully that's giving you an idea of just how great Italy fits the concept of Pokemon. Honestly, the last thing I want to do is cut the number 1 entry so short, but to be fair, I don't have much else to add. An Italian region feels like such a slam dunk with the country's vast history, unique geography, and interesting wildlife. And I truly believe that we will eventually get an Italy-based region someday, even if it's not for Generation 10. And those are the top 5 places I would like to see the Generation 10 Pokemon region be based on. I know a lot of them were already covered in my regional videos, but honestly that kinda makes sense because for my regions, I tried to cover ideas that had enough depth to them to support an entire region. These 5 ideas I think could be the basis for a brand new game, and I genuinely hope to see them come to fruition someday. Anyways, what do you guys think? Do you like these ideas? Maybe they're not your favorite and you have better suggestions for the Generation 10 region. Feel free to share your thoughts and own ideas in the comments section below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.